Brits are here. I like Paul Revere.
British.
The British are coming.
British.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered. I'm Hannah. Today I'm here with Anam, Nazish, and Maz. And so today we're going to be talking about whether you should go 50-50 with your husband or wife. So Islamically, like Surah An-Nisa does have a lot to say about how finances should be split between husband and wife. And so in Surah An-Nisa, ayah 34, it says, "Men are the caretakers of women, as men have been provisioned by Allah over women and tasked with supporting them financially. And righteous women are devoutly obedient and, when alone, protective of what Allah has entrusted them with." So according to Islam, men and women have certain roles and they're obligated to fulfill them. And so one of these obligations for men is to provide financially for his wife. And so that includes like food, shelter, clothing, and that's about it, general well-being. So based off your own opinions, how do you guys feel about splitting finances with your spouse?
So I think it's important to preface also that obviously with this topic and a lot of other things that we've talked about, right, other topics that we've talked about, there's going to be opinions, right? So we're all going to have our own opinions on whether or not we do want to split 50-50 or whatever else it is. But I think it's also important to, like you said, Hannah, to set the record straight. When it comes to Islam, there's a set in stone of what is Islamically appropriate when it comes to this topic and what I guess is not. So I think that's, I'm glad that we were able to set the record straight when it comes to kind of like the protocol when it comes to Islam.
Right.
But like you said, in terms of what we personally feel, I guess, yeah. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think it all comes down to like how each person sees their life like panning out, I guess. Like if you're one of those people that's like, okay, like I want my husband to take care of everything, I don't want to worry about anything, like I don't want him texting me about the electricity bill, like that's got nothing to do with me, then I don't think that you could ever get to a point where you're like marrying someone who believes maybe you should go 50-50, maybe you should go 70-30, and you shouldn't enter a marriage like that and then expect things to be different and go your way. So I think it all comes down to like how you feel personally about the life that you want to build for yourself. So if you're one of those people that's like, yeah, I want to go 50-50, I want to split everything right down the middle, and then you end up with, you know what, sometimes like people throw away their blessings. You end up with someone who's like, no, I got it, like I'm going to take care of it, and you're like, no, actually I want to go 50-50. Like, that's on you, you know? I think personally, there is like a certain standard of like the life that I want to see for myself. So I think like I'm not going to speak for all women, but I'll say like for myself, like I do want to be able to have that option to fall back on. Like if I wanted to stay home and like raise children, I want to be able to do that, you know?
Yeah.
So I'd prefer not to be the main breadwinner in my household. And so with that comes like when it comes time to marry and all, you'll have to find some like a partner that'll be able to fulfill that for you. So just based off that, like how do you guys feel about personally like what you want to see for yourself finance-wise?
I think that with the finances, it should be my husband's responsibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not an unpopular opinion. That's honestly like a very,
But I would say like
Popular
fully
opinion.
his responsibility.
as you
So,
should.
I have like different reasons for that. I can go into that
And
later.
we'll go
but, like,
into those,
yeah,
but
go
just
ahead, you guys
generally.
say it
I was
first.
just saying, so one thing I think we should have added in the beginning, because when we talk about like the basic necessities that a man should be able to provide for, I think there also ends up becoming like a gray area where it's okay, food, shelter, clothing, and then there are certain conversations that come up that it's kind of like a want versus a need. So when you think about shelter, right? So basic shelter should be whatever the man can actually financially
Just a
afford
roof
and
over
give.
your head, yeah.
Yes, a roof over your head. Whereas in other cases, I think a lot of people mistake that for shelter should be the most grandest, or not even most grand, but something, a lot more than the person can afford, and that comes with clothing. Like, clothing should be just any clothing, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about branded, we're not talking about the most,
Expensive, high
luxurious
quality, whatever,
clothes and
yeah.
jacket and things like that. When it comes to food, it comes to just being able to
Go have like your 3 meals a day
exactly,
sort of
nothing
thing.
like taking you out for dinner every single day or going to the most fanciest restaurants. So I
Just
think
buying groceries,
Yeah,
buying
simple as that.
the necessities, like when I think that's where like wires get crossed for sure. As you said, like people be like, oh yeah, well he has to provide this and this and this for
Everything,
me, and then start getting mad when he's not putting a Chanel bag like on the dinner table like every day,
And it sounds silly that we're kind of making this like separation,
But people don't get it.
But people get greedy
People
too,
get caught
like
up in
just
it.
in general.
That's why.
You're like, okay, my man has to provide for me, you could, I was gonna say you could say woman, but then I was like, actually no, you can't. But not Islamically, if we're still going off those
Islamically, yeah.
guidelines, and so then you get to that point and you're like, well, I want this and this and this, and he can't do that for me, so he's out. But that's not what God says. God did not say that he needs to cater to every one of your materialistic desires.
Exactly,
I think something that we we didn't touch on, but within Islam, when you do get married to somebody, right? I think before you marry them, you have to understand like what it is like within the women's needs, right, or whatever what's in their means. So like let's say if you were living this way prior to marriage, you have to kind of accommodate to that. Yeah, right. So like you can't, like, let's say if this woman who was wealthy and she's living lavishly, like if you get married into like a woman, like let's say I'm not like super well off or whatever, Islamically I need to at least like
what she was raised
rear
with,
to that, right? Or
yeah,
at least try to get close to that, right?
Yeah,
Because that's what I guess that's kind of how I interpret this.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll talk about myself personally. So me and my wife works, and we split our finances kind of equally. So like when we first got married, one of the first things we did was that we created a joint account. So like I guess fortunate for me, I guess my wife works, and so we're able, a lot of things come easier with us, right? Like things that when we make decisions, when when we buy stuff, it becomes easily. For her, Islamically, she has the right that she doesn't have to work. She doesn't have to do anything. I have to provide, right? And like one thing that I know, before we had this conversation, or like before we have this conversation, I was talking to her a little bit about this, and she was saying, I was like, she's like, yeah, for me, Islamically, like I have the right to like not work and have you do it, but she was telling me how like for her, she's like, if I would buy things, like for me, like I could buy Amazon stuff, whatever. She's like, if I wasn't working on my own, I would think twice about it. Yeah. Because like in my mind, like I'd feel bad a little bit, whatever it is, but it's like at the same time, but she's like, I know, but I understand that my right is that I am, but it's just like in the back of my mind, I feel bad. But she was saying of the fact that she does work, she doesn't have that, like she doesn't have that any bad feeling or whatever. She's like, I could do whatever I want, I could get whatever I want without having to worry, like, oh, like I don't want to be too much of like a a burden, even though you're not a burden, right? It's your spouse, but
the thought still comes up.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I agree with you on that one. Like, and I think at the end of the day, like Maz brought up like a really good point where he said like the standard that somebody's living at, you want to marry somebody who's able to provide that for you. Like when you see like Nisa, it talks about how it's a man's job, and that comes down to your mahram. So your mahram right now, if you're unmarried, is your dad, your older brother if your dad passed away. Like it's like the leading man in your life. And so when you get married, your mahramship like transfers from whoever your male guardian is to your husband. And so if you're living under your current mahram's like house and you're getting certain things and you're getting this and this and that, if you marry somebody else and that becomes his responsibility, you have to like, I guess like be aware of what he's able to provide for you.
I was gonna say like if he can't accommodate to all of that, then you know going into that he can't provide like that to the same level as that, and you have to be okay with it because this information you're presented with, you can't just like force that sort of thing onto him either.
And like I think like that's where people kind of, I mean, money is like one of the leading causes of divorce in America, right? Like financial burden, financial issues are one of the leading causes of divorce. And so it's like if you go into a marriage expecting all these things with someone who can provide that for you, and if you value these things so much to the point where it's going to become like a point of contention in your marriage, then maybe you should not marry them. Maybe you should marry somebody else. And so I think these conversations are especially important to have like before you marry someone, especially because it's like somebody who goes into a marriage and believes a marriage is about going straight up like 50-50. If you marry someone like that, they're not going to change their ways just because of you. Like love changes things, but it's not going to change anyone fundamentally, If these are their values, their ideals, it's like what they really believe. So I think you have to be like really smart and selective. And I know like now we can get into like the reasons why we personally believe what we believe. So I don't think I mentioned that. I personally would prefer like, I want to work, I want to continue working, but I do want to be able to fall back and not work when I decide I don't want to work anymore, like if I want to prioritize like my home life. And so I personally believe in like what Maz is doing, like having a joint account. I think if we can live off one salary, preferably his salary, I don't want to be like the main breadwinner in my household, then like my salary can go towards fun things, vacation, savings, retirement. Like it doesn't necessarily need to go to like paying like the house bills. Like, okay, mortgages due, what's that got to do with me, But like if we're talking about going to Disneyland, okay, now I can get a little involved, But what about you, Anam?
So I kind of agree with, the conversation that Mazi was saying that you had with your wife. I'm in the same boat as her. So I know that my husband can financially support me, and at the end of the day, he has those obligations. But for me, I'm also working, and I also would like to provide, and I know I don't have to, but for me, it's kind of like the more we have, the more we can do with that in terms of like if we're both, we really want to go a place, and obviously if we just have one salary, maybe getting to that destination,
It's a little
or getting
harder.
to the vacation, it might take 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, alhamdulillah, I have my own salary, so if I am able to pitch in and go to that vacation earlier, then why not. I obviously I'm not living with my husband right now, but we do have this conversation a lot, and I think about things like right now when we go on dates, so we'll go out and we'll have dinner and things like that, and he definitely will pay, but then I also feel like I'm like I want to contribute too, and I actually was gonna ask like kind of later on, but I guess I can ask that now, where Maz, you being like the man on the table, I don't know what else, being like the only guy in this conversation, I'm curious to know, like, there are certain things where I guess it's not really, I wouldn't say it's an ego thing, but a lot of the times I've noticed that guys feel a certain way about their girl paying for dinners or certain things.
It's kind of an
I'm-
ego thing.
I
think
don't
so,
know,
a
I
little
think
bit.
it's 100% an ego thing.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like
I think so.
they feel
like
badly about it, like
like,
they don't
oh,
want
no,
their
no,
I
girl
mean,
to
They
pay.
I feel like
usually
it
want
would
her
just
pay.
I feel like it
Oh,
would
okay.
just emasculate any guy when a girl
Yeah.
pays
Oh,
or when a girl like,
emasculates.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's just for me, I guess.
I see it.
Because
I
I
see
think-
it.
Chivalrous.
I see it.
offer to pay, like I'm just like, okay, we've been like, I want to do, even if it's for his birthday, like I'll be like, it's your birthday, like I
Yeah.
want to pay, and then he'll make such a big deal about it, and it's sweet, right? Like he wants to be able to provide. I know he wants to follow his obligations, but then there are times where I'm like I want to be able to I want to be able to
Do
pitch
something
in
for
a
him,
financial
yeah,
way
yeah.
too, whether it be some like dessert place that we're going to or like dinner. So I just, that was kind of like my question one of my questions when we were doing this topic, because I kind of want to know like a guy's perspective behind this.
I think so. Like guys, right? Like they want they want to have that power, right? Where they're like they're getting stuff for you. They
Yeah.
want to, right? Like it's
Yeah.
something that you want to do. But I feel like at the same time, when a girl like doesn't like I guess even ask or even like kind of like like when it's expected with the girl,
Hint
when it's
at
like
it, right?
or even hint at it or even ask.
Yeah, yeah.
For I don't know if it's with all guys, but for me it's more like like, I feel more like I'm always gonna do it, right? I'm always gonna pay for whatever it is. But like when a girl at least tries, or when you see a girl at least like thinking to herself like, oh hey, like I can help out, or let me do it. Then it's like I guess it just makes a guy feel better in that sense, or at least maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
But like when a
Makes you feel
girl
better about
expects it,
paying?
no, it makes me feel better that like what
About
like
the-
like
yeah,
at least
offer.
she's like offering. But when a girl is just like, oh okay good, like that's what I expected, like oh that's what you should be doing. That it's like to a guy where it's like then you might not want to pay, and you might be like, oh you know what,
Then do you even
let's
like
split
the
it or
girl?
whatever.
Did you even like the girl? Like at
Yeah.
that
I
point?
actually get that, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of like thinking back, like even if at the end of the day I don't end up paying, he will always be like, but that was really sweet, like
It's the thought that counts,
it's the
right?
thought that
Yeah.
So
counts, yeah. So I
Okay.
get that. That makes sense. But I always
Yeah.
wonder, I'm like, like for some guys it's a huge deal. For other guys are like, yeah, sure, we'll keep. I mean, we're gonna be together for the rest of our life. So like, like some
Mhm.
people just have that mindset, like, are you always gonna be paying every time we go out for dinner, or are you always gonna be paying when we're going and doing these things together? Like, that kind of mindset. But yeah, for me, kind of like recapping, very similar to Maz, the conversation you and your wife have. Alhamdulillah, I make my own money, so I don't mind at all being able to provide. But also similar to you, Hannah, at the end of the day, I think I wouldn't say it would be 50-50 for me. Not that I have no anything against it. I just know at the end of the day, that's just gonna end up that's just how it's gonna end up working out. So for me, I would want to pay my respect back through other things.
Mhm.
So if it's not going to be finances, I want to be able to provide in different ways. And I mean, I know we'll kind of, because Nazish and I talk about this often.
Yeah.
And I know like you're very strong on that point too. So I want to let you say that, but that's kind of my thinking is. That's
Yeah.
what my thinking is behind it.
Oh, actually, I'll let you go.
Okay, are you sure?
Yeah, go.
I really want to know what Naz. I
Yeah,
want to know
okay.
Naz's thought process.
I know this is like really different, not like the norm, I guess,
No,
but
that's okay.
I do want my husband to fully, financially support me. I don't want to say that like if he expects me to, then I won't. I mean, like obviously, I don't intend to work. I don't work right now. I don't plan to work because I do just want to, like you said, fulfill my responsibilities other ways, like with the house, with the family, kids, in-laws, whatever it is.
I mean, Islamically, like, it's not, I know it's not the norm now, and like, we
Yeah.
can get into the reasons why
Yeah.
it's no longer the norm and why I personally disagree with it, but Islamically, like, if your wife is not working, because, again, like, women were able to work, women were able to educate themselves, but if you're not working, it's 100% on him.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's
if he's not
okay,
able to
yeah.
provide for you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to stand him up on the day of judgment and be like, so, where'd you go wrong on this one?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So, like, it's not even, like, a point where you should feel bad about it. It's like,
Yeah.
like, this is what's expected, like, religiously from
Yeah, yeah.
men.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't do that right now either. Like I said, I the house stuff, like that's literally what I focus on. So I don't plan on splitting the finances. I do like, like here and there, like my JAG card and whatever. So it's not like I can't provide for this. If I wanted to, like I could.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I can do better. I can fulfill the same responsibilities, the same work as he's putting into other things, like you said, in a different way.
Yep.
So that's just where I stand.
Mhm. I mean, circling back to what you said, like Nazish and I are not married, so obviously things are very different for me and her versus how you guys see things. Like, and I know you said like about like offering to pay, and you like seconded that. Personally, my dad taught me if a man's like expecting you to pay, like you're never gonna see that man again.
But I
know?
want to clarify, it's not that he expects
Yeah,
it from me.
I'll never- yeah,
It's
again.
something that, and I'm sure that you don't expect your wife
Never,
to pay.
ever,
It's
never.
just a thought that counts.
Yeah, I think it's
Right.
just a nice
Never
gesture.
My
just
dad,
okay,
like,
it's
my
your
dad-
turn. Like,
Yeah.
It's like
My
a
dad
little
said, don't
thing.
even like personally the way
Don't
that my
even
dad
try.
taught it. Don't even think that thought. Like,
okay.
yeah, because like in our culture, and it's like a strong, like deeply cultural thing. Like if a man pays or expects a woman to pay, they're gonna be like, "What are you, a woman?" Like in like Algerian culture, like if a man's like, so who's gonna you're gonna get the bill today? Like they're gonna be like, "Oh my god, like that's like a woman." Like two girls are out and like out and about right now, you know.
Though.
It's mean, but that's because they have such a concept of like women are meant to be protected, women are meant to be
like,
provided
taken
for,
care of.
women are meant to be respected. Like they don't really have that concept of like 50-50, like or like women like getting it. And so even
Cultures
then,
don't, yeah. Some
cultures don't, right? And so even then, like say like for example, like I personally would never expect to like foot the bill, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you can like show your gratitude in other ways. Like you can get like a nice present that you spend on your own. Like there's so many ways, like even like emotionally, like that you can invest in, you can give back. Like you make a nice meal, like you come home to a clean house. That is all part of stuff that you're like fulfilling your duties as. And you're being like a good wife, a good husband.
Yeah.
Just like the duties are a little different, you know?
Yeah.
So like and then on 50-50, you said like you don't really have any qualms about that. I do believe in like the joint bank accounts. I believe in contributing so that you can get better. But at the same time, I think once it like a line in the sand is drawn and it's like 50-50 is like definitive, that's what we're gonna do. I feel like that 50-50 mentality like bleeds into everything else. Like, you know, like are you gonna have it so that you guys like believe in going halfway so often, like one of you takes like staying up with the baby, like you guys get a newborn and one of you's like, no, I already did that yesterday, it's your turn.
Yeah.
You know, like
You
I
count
think
it, right?
Yeah, I
You're
feel
counting
like
every little thing. Then.
once you do things 50-50 like exactly, I feel like it's easier for you to be like, okay, well I already did my my share, so it's
And
your
that's why I
turn.
said I already know that it's not. This whole like obviously this thing, our conversation is about 50-50, but I that's why I was prefacing like I know it's not gonna end up being 50-50, especially as a woman's perspective. Like it just doesn't end up being 50-50, or like I don't see it being 50-50. So I get that. I totally I understand.
I kind of want to ask you two this. Let's
Who's
say
you two, Maz?
no, Hannah and Anna.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
If you were expected to, like, let's say, like, you were in the situation where you had to, would you mind helping out with the finances?
What do you mean by you had to? Like we're like financially struggling,
Yeah.
like
You were in that situation, things came up. I mean, like, things do come up. It happens, whatever. But
That's
if
true.
you're in that case, like, would you mind?
no, I don't mind.
Not at all.
Like I think like for example, like say like while I am with you on the point where I wish to be in a marriage where I feel like I'm not having to worry about finances, like I want to have something I can fall back on. But like, you know, things happen. Like say one of our parents, like God forbid, like ends up in hospice care or something. That's something that's super expensive, you know?
Yeah.
And like I understand like we got to cut corners and stuff. Like I'm not like, oh my God, like I want him to pay so badly that I'm going to like not contribute because I feel like it's like against like my idea of like what a marriage should be like. I think with everything, and this like goes into the next point, I think there has to be compromise, you know, like there
Yeah,
has to be
definitely.
moderation.
Of course.
Even if you have these like ideas, like when you love someone, you're willing to do whatever it takes to have your marriage be happy and have you guys like live the best possible lives together you can. And so for me, I definitely would like contribute.
Yeah.
What about you?
No,
You
I
said
think
yeah.
You literally summed it up so well. I was gonna say I think at the end of the day, for me, it's whatever is going to keep my marriage working and continue to bring blessings upon my marriage. And if that means splitting or me contributing to finances, okay. I'm not gonna be like, no, like this isn't my duty or it's your obligation. Like then you think of all the other problems that it'll cause you know with whatever it is. So
And that
yeah,
like breeds
In the
resentment
family.
in your relationship. Like
yeah. So for me, it's I mean, it's not. I think. Sorry, I don't know. What I'm trying to say. I don't think it's a big deal at all.
It's not, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal at all.
Another
What
thing
about
I'm.
you,
Oh,
Nazish?
I
Oh,
just-
sorry,
go ahead. I just wonder.
Obviously, like, if that situation were to arise, I don't want him to, like, expect me, like, going into the marriage, like yeah, you should work. Because obviously, like, I have that freedom whether I want to or not. But, like, if the situation were to arise and, you know, we need both incomes, then yeah, I would go ahead and make that sacrifice to go and work.
Right. I think that the issue comes with expectation. Like, if somebody is gonna marry you, Nazish, they know that this is the ideal.
Yeah,
that
this
you
is
have
like
for
what
it.
I want in life.
So, like, ideally, like, if this is a man where he can't account financially in case, like, some worst case scenario happens, he's not making enough money to deal with it, he's like, no, we're gonna have to take, like, a second mortgage out on the house and stuff, then maybe he shouldn't be marrying you.
Yeah.
You know, like,
You
he
have to
knows,
think about
like,
these things.
the
Yeah, yeah.
expectations that you come with, and that's okay if a man can't provide
It's
that.
fine. That's
because
just, like,
somebody
your
else
thing.
can,
Yeah,
you know? Somebody else can, and somebody else will. And so,
It just
like,
depends on your
yeah.
situations. Yeah.
So, like, if that's, like, the mentality you have, like, I mean, no broke boys. You know, like, that's the
I don't
only
want to say
thing
it like
I can
that,
say.
but I mean, yeah, you'd like know
But
what
it's
you're getting
like
into.
that, you
Know what you're
yeah,
getting
like,
into.
know what you're getting
What were you
into.
gonna say, Maz?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say like it's so like the aspect of getting married young, right? So like it's like a sunnah, like fulfilling a sunnah in that aspect, right? It's important to understand that when you're young, you know, you might not have your full life ahead of you. You might not have your whole like life set. But like for me, like I got married at 22. Would I have thought that I could have like gotten married if I didn't have a job like lined up for myself? Like no, not in 100 years, like never. But like, does it help when like you know your wife does as well? Like yeah. But again, it kind of helps out in that sense when it's like, let's say you do meet somebody and like you know everything, you know all the boxes check off, but then it's like, oh, you know what, we're still too young. He's not gonna be able to like fully afford like you know afford or
All these
you know
things
all
for
like
yourself,
yeah
yeah.
exactly. So it's like then where are you drawing that like line of compromising, right? Like where are you what is more valuable to you? Like a good person checking off every single box, but oh, you know what, we might be a little bit too young. What do? Do you wait? Do you like do your nikah? Like do you know
Where do you
you know go into like haram relationship where you can you know like it's just there's a lot of things that you kind of have to think about when it
Yeah,
comes
you
to that
do.
stuff.
That's
I'm
But,
really glad that you mentioned that because I've noticed at least, you know, well, something that I've noticed that this conversation gets brought up in a lot of families who, you know, a guy
No,
or a
because
girl, they
seriously,
met
yeah.
someone, but because they met someone so young, like the parents bring up, well, he's too young, he doesn't even have a full-time job.
Yeah,
he
they talk
doesn't
about that a
doing
lot.
this." And then, like you were saying, Maz, all these things, they literally check out all the boxes, but because they're not able to, which I get, like there is again that line
There's a
where
reason,
they
yeah,
have
yeah.
to be financially
Stable.
They have to be some sort like financially stable, right? But yeah, like you were saying, Maz, kind of like where do you draw the line with that too?
Yeah.
But it's
That's,
definitely a conversation to have. So go ahead.
No. That's actually something that I like changed my opinion on. So like I used to think feel very strongly about this topic, but I used to think like for what I saw for myself in a marriage, I was like, no, I want to marry someone like 4 or 5, 6 years older than me, like so that I have like that financial stability, security. Like I'm gonna walk into it, I'm not gonna worry. And because like sometimes you know like we all value different things, and security is something that I really do value. Like I like my life a certain way. I never liked making adjustments, but now like I see my friends getting married young. I see like I mean I'm going to you guys' weddings. Like it's so much like there's been such like a cultural like shift in like the dynamic of like how people get like married. I think like it was reserved for like 30-year-olds.
But now, mashallah,
like-
so many young people.
Yeah, but now it's so many young people, and so now I'm like I know like even though I have the expectations that I have, I'm willing to marry somebody that's young and doesn't have the financial means right now if I know that they're setting their life up to be able to provide
Exactly.
that.
Because you can make it work.
Exactly.
And there's a difference between, and I think we may have, I don't know if this is kind of going off topic, but like you also need to see that potential in your significant other, your future spouse, right? So if I know that, yes, they're young, that person is young right now, but they have ambitions, they have goals lined up. It's not like they're just staying home and they're depending on, you know, just things.
Mom and dad, like
That goes on the character.
That was another thing. Like when
I wouldn't say that, but-
when
okay,
like
I said it for you.
when for a guy, right? You know, as mentioned before, like you know, it's their responsibility to you know
Yeah.
be the breadwinner, or whatever,
Yeah.
or at least you know have income. When it comes to like you know, finding a wife, right? And like you know, you could go whatever route you want. You could go with the wife that's you know working. You could go to the wife that wants to be the housewife or whatever. But like again, so one thing that I like really cared for, like when trying to find like a wife, right, was you know just trying to find like to try to figure out what you're passionate about. Like you could literally be passionate about you know whatever like something with your work, and if that's what you're passionate about, do it, right? But if you're passionate about like you know being a housewife, right, then be the best freaking housewife out there. Like that's what I want you to be passionate about. If I want you to like love it, I want you to do it, then just do that. And then
But
like
you're
I
all
thought
into it, yeah.
exactly that's what it
I
is, right? At
agree.
the end of the day, so as long as you're passionate about something, at least for me, and I think you know a lot of other guys should like you know like just maybe think that way, where it's like you know you don't have to necessarily have to have someone that like you know works or whatever. Like it's as long as they're passionate about something, right?
Ambition
And
comes in so many different
Yeah.
ways.
Exactly.
I think Ma said that perfectly. Like,
I
we're
think
not
so
telling
too.
you guys to go marry potential, okay?
Yeah.
Like, that's not enough.
Yeah.
But, like, there's always potential in something. Like, if somebody is, like, a student and they have these plans and, like, okay, like, for example, like, just something mundane, like dental school, okay? Like, you're not marrying, like, an aspiring guitarist or something. Like, you're
Yeah.
marrying someone that's, like, accruing a little bit of student debt, but, like, they have, like, you know, no, like,
No,
but
yeah, you're
they
right.
have, like, this set plan and these goals and stuff, and then say that you want a dentist salary. You want to marry a man with a dentist salary, but he's a student now. You can marry him now as long as you're okay with going through that little period of time where you're not
Yeah.
going to have exactly what you want, but
Yeah.
inshallah it works out for you.
That's the point of the
Yeah.
marriage, you know, like you make things work.
That's
you
like the
adjust,
compromise
yeah.
we talk about, you know, like
Yeah.
there's so many ways that you can grow with somebody. There's so many ways where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might send you the person at a time you're not expecting, you know, and like Ma said, like you don't want to have all these boxes checked and be like, no, like you're so focused on the material
Yeah.
aspect of things and finances. You're like, I want my white picket fence now or I'm not getting married. Well,
Yeah.
somebody else is going to take him, girl.
Yeah.
Like somebody else is going to take that man and then you're going to look back and
Yeah.
regret it. Like, I mean, hopefully not. But you never want to make money the point of contention in your marriage
No, definitely.
because it's such like a huge, like, I don't know, like I don't want to say like it's like such a big fat deal, but it is, you know. And so like if you make your decision based off like a lifelong decision based off money, then maybe you shouldn't be getting married right now. Like
No, yeah.
a little more maturity.
No, definitely. But I mean, I think this was a good little end spot to wrap up our conversation. I think there were a lot of things that we talked about that, you know, for anyone that's watching or, you know, got through the whole pod, there are a lot of questions that, you know, could be good questions.
Some things
to
I never
ask
thought
for-
about, yeah,
to
honestly.
talk about if you know, with your spouse or just, you know, questions to have in mind when you're looking for someone. But let us know what you thought. Comment, like, share. And inshallah, we'll see you on the next pod. Allah Hafiz.